chance to escape or invite something in. You ever stuck your thumb out on the edge of nowhere, praying someone will stop before the dark does? Or maybe you've been the one behind the wheel, watching a figure on the shoulder. Head down, one twisting their coat like it's hiding something. There's always that moment. A flick of the headlights, a glance in the rear view, a window half rolled down. You look, they look back. And just like that, it begins. One ride, one choice. Sometimes it saves a life. Sometimes it swallows it whole. I'm queenieEanaj, and this is Thumbprint. 8 stories of roadside reckonings. Of the lost, the luring, the cursed, and the cornered. Stories you only hear if you were in the car or found what was left behind.
Episode 1. Pick Me Up. You ever try to trace someone's last words backwards? Not just read them, but feel them. Like they're a breadcrumb trail left in a language only the gut understands. I've done it. I've stared at text bubbles like road signs. I've followed emojis like blood trails. And let me tell you, people don't always disappear clean. Sometimes they leave a smudge on the world. You just gotta know where to press. Deanna June Fairchild was 22 when she vanished off the side of Route 49, middle of nowhere, Michigan. 2 days after the 4th of July, 2019, she was headed to a music festival called Forest Fire, a weekend of dirt, dancing, and whatever pills fit in your sock. The kind of place where Wi-Fi dies and something older starts to breathe. That's probably why she ended up hitchhiking. Deanna wasn't naive. She was bright, but she had this stubborn, starry-eyed kind of faith in people. The kind that makes you think nothing bad can happen as long as you're smiling and mean well. She left her apartment in Kalamazoo that Friday morning with a tote bag, her phone half charged, and 2 paper wristbands already on her arm. No one ever saw her again. Well, almost no one. Her sister, Nicole, noticed first. Deanna always checked in. Even when she was 2 drinks deep or dancing barefoot in the rain, she'd send blurry selfies from porta potty lines or voice notes that sounded like chaos on fire. But by Saturday afternoon, silence. Then, all at once, 5 messages, time-stamped within 60 seconds. Got in, he offered, smells like ash, wrong music, not FF, no emojis, no punctuation, no jokes. Just panic, stripped bare. Nicole knew, you don't grow up with someone without learning the rhythm of their voice, even when it's typed. When she read those words, something inside her went still. She called. Voicemail. FaceTimed. Nothing. Then she did what only someone who knows you would think to do. She started solving the puzzle while it was still bleeding. Deanna had planned to ride with friends, but the car filled up. She told Nicole, "I'll figure it out." Said she was half magical when it came to catching rides. Her phone last pinged near a gas station off Route 49. Just endless cornfields and silence on both sides. Nicole drove out there herself. She found Deanna's phone in the ditch. Screen cracked, still warm. On the back was a faint, oily smudge, a thumbprint, just one. Now let me pause, because there are unspoken rules to hitchhiking. Doesn't matter who you are, they exist. Rule 1, never get in a car that stops too fast or too slow. Rule 2, if the radio's off when you open the door, walk away. Rule 3, always trust your nose, because sometimes the only clue you get is the smell. Deanna wrote, "Smells like ash." Nicole told police everything. They shrugged. Said maybe Deanna ran off with someone. Maybe she was already at the festival, off-grid, living her best life. Maybe she'd show up with a new tattoo and a ridiculous story. But Nicole felt it, in the marrow. She dove into Deanna's social media, bank accounts, calendar, even her Spotify history. That's when she found something that made the hairs on my neck stand up. The last song Deanna played was called Don't Pick Me Up. No cover art, no artist bio, no lyrics posted, just the title. Nicole played it. It opened with footsteps on gravel, then a car door creaking open, then a voice, low, male, almost a whisper, saying, "You get in, you don't get out." Then the beat dropped. If you can call it that. It sounded like dragging chains across asphalt, like something crawling with metal teeth. Deanna would never have played that on purpose, so who pressed play? Nicole went back to the gas station, talked to the night clerk. He remembered Deanna, said she bought a water, asked if anyone was heading north. He told her no one came in, just a guy already parked in the corner, old maroon pickup. Rusted. Looked like it'd been stitched together with duct tape and prayer. When she came out, she got in the passenger seat. The man never looked at her, never said a word. Nicole pulled the security footage. It was useless, grainy. The pickup was just a smear of light pulling away. But here's the part that'll make your stomach turn. There was no footage of the truck arriving, only of it leaving. That's when I knew I needed to follow Nicole. I don't tell stories unless they've got teeth, unless they rattle something in the dark parts of me. And this one, it bit. Nicole posted the messages online, asked for help, and the stories started rolling in. A woman in Ohio, name withheld for safety, said she once got in a rideshare where the driver played this awful, droning music. Said it sounded like a funeral dirge fed through a garbage disposal. Made her stomach twist. She begged him to turn it off. He didn't respond. She jumped out at a red light. Never told anyone until Nicole's post. A man in Indiana said he picked up a hitchhiker who begged him not to play any music. Said certain sounds brought him closer. When he asked who he was, she covered her ears and screamed. He dropped her off at a diner. She vanished before his fries hit the table. Others chimed in. People who remembered smelling smoke in places with no fire. People who heard whispers through static. One woman said her name appeared backward on the speedometer. Another said her phone typed messages on its own after getting out of a car that smelled like melted rubber and grief. Nicole mapped the stories. Dates, times, locations. That's when she saw the pattern. Each incident happened between 3:27 and 3:29 p.m. Different years, different roads, but they all once connected to Route 49. She called it the Echo Line. Said it wasn't on any map. Not officially, but it was real. Said it moved like a vein under skin, quiet, pulsing. Said maybe Deanna didn't get picked up by a man at all. Maybe it was something else. Something that wears the shape of a driver but doesn't bleed. Doesn't sleep, doesn't stop. Something that collects. Maybe you think Nicole just unraveled, couldn't face the truth, needed a story to keep breathing. Except she disappeared too. Exactly 1 year later. She rented a car, drove back to the gas station. Told her best friend she just needed to feel the air again. Left a voice memo before she got out. This time, I'll be ready. I won't say yes. I just want to see if it's real. They found the rental with the door open, engine running. Her phone was in the grass. Same smudged thumbprint on the back. Not hers, not human. You ever stare at a thumbprint and feel like it's watching you? I have. I don't tell these stories to scare you. I tell them to warn you, to mark the soft spots in the world, where things shift, where logic thins, where roads bleed into something older. There's something out there, prowling the highways. It doesn't look the same twice. Sometimes it's a helpful trucker. Sometimes a stalled sedan with hazard lights blinking just right. Sometimes it's the hitchhiker, tear-streaked, barefoot, beautiful. but it's always waiting. And it always smells like something that shouldn't have burned. Deanna said yes. Nicole said no. Both are gone. And somewhere between pavement and sky, between 3:27 and 3:29 p.m., they left behind pieces of themselves. Maybe that's all it needs. Not your body, just your presence, your mark. A thumbprint on a road, it's still drawing. So next time you see someone with their thumb out, or feel the urge to raise your own, remember this: you only get one ride, but sometimes the ride gets more than one of you. The ride home. You can spend your whole life on the road and still not see what's really out there. Carlos Morgan drove trucks for 37 years, knew the interstates like veins, the back roads like scars, said the hum of the engine, the CB chatter, the soft glow of taillights stretching into black, that was his rhythm. He wasn't the talkative kind, not by default. But the story he told me came out slow, like something that had been trapped in him for a long time. It didn't want sympathy, didn't even want to be believed, just wanted out. Here's how he told it. Late fall, 2008, somewhere between Amarillo and Roswell. That long, dead stretch of highway where the land folds inward like it's hiding something and the stars feel like they're leaning in too close. Carlos was hauling fertilizer westbound, behind schedule, but not enough to stress over. Just past midnight, he saw her, barefoot, standing on the shoulder where gravel meets dark, pale, thin, hair like wet straw clinging to her face, a white tank top and pajama shorts, both soaked in blood from the waist down. She didn't wave, didn't flinch, just stood there like a scarecrow someone forgot to string up. Carlos braked, said it wasn't a decision, just instinct, like dodging roadkill or a deer. She didn't move when the truck stopped, didn't move when the door swung open, only moved when he called out, "You okay?" And even then, it was slow, like watching a puppet twitch for the first time. She climbed in without a word. He figured maybe she was in shock, maybe a car crash, an assault, something awful. He handed her a towel from the dash and a bottle of water. She took both, didn't meet his eyes. Her hands trembled, but her face was still. Not blank, just quiet, like someone staring at a screen with the volume off. He kept driving, told himself he'd take her to the nearest hospital, or sheriff's station, or somewhere. But the radio wouldn't catch a signal. The GPS kept rerouting like it didn't know where they were anymore. He asked her name, silence. Asked if she was hurt, nothing. Then he noticed the blood on her legs wasn't hers. Carlos had seen trauma. He'd seen broken bodies and wide eyes and people screaming through the pain. But this girl, she wasn't loud. She was hollow, like a grave that had nothing left to say. After a while, he stopped trying to talk, just drove. The road started stretching in a strange way. Same landscape, same horizon, but it felt like he wasn't moving forward anymore, like the pavement was circling him without changing. At one point, he glanced at the clock. It still said 12:19. 2 hours later, he turned to tell the girl something. She was gone. Gone. No door sound, no shift in the seat, no breath. Just gone. The towel was still there, but clean. No blood, no smell, no sign she'd ever touched it. Just the faint dent in the vinyl, like someone had been sitting there a long, long time. Carlos slammed the brakes, got out, looked around. Nothing. No wind, no insects, no distant headlights. and just silence so thick it pressed against his chest like a second skin. He got back in, turned the key, truck started fine, but the headlights stayed off, and then the radio came alive. Static, then breathing, slow, wet, too close, then a voice, not his, not hers, just wrong. It said, "You took her," and cut off. Carlos drove 10 miles without lights, just the dark curling in around him, thick and too still. Then, like someone flipped a switch, the headlights blinked back on. He was back, on a real road again, with mile markers and wind. He found a diner, parked out front like he wasn't unraveling inside, walked in shaking like something still clung to his shoulders, ordered black coffee with 2 shots of whiskey from a waitress who didn't blink, said he looked like he'd seen hell. He didn't answer, but before she left the table, she asked one more thing. "Did she smile at you?" He said no. She nodded. "Then you're one of the lucky ones." He didn't ask what she meant. Didn't want to know. Carlos went home a few days later and retired. Parked the truck for good. Never explained why. Not to his company. Not even to his wife. But every so often, he'd wake up with that breathing in his ear. And once, just once, he found a clean towel, folded neatly on the passenger seat of his car. No explanation. I looked for the girl. All he had was a name, Shannon Weaver. He saw it on a missing poster taped to a truck stop pump a few weeks later. The girl in the photo was 16, last seen that August, 3 states over. Barefoot, pajamas, covered in blood that wasn't hers. She wasn't reported missing for 2 days. By then, the blood had dried. Who it belonged to? Never found. There were stories, of course, that Shannon had escaped something, that she'd witnessed something she wasn't meant to. Some say it wasn't a man who hurt her. Some say it wasn't a person at all. That maybe she broke a rule, and now she's bound to the road she died on. Some folks believe she never died, that she became part of it, that when a kind soul pulls over, she climbs in because she remembers what it felt like to be helped. But if the person who stops isn't kind, she smiles, and that's the last thing they ever see. I asked Carlos what made him stop that night. He said something in her eyes reminded him of his daughter, but maybe it was something else. Maybe the road chose him. And maybe she almost did too, because every year on that same date, at the same time, Carlos places a folded towel on the passenger seat of his truck. He never explains it, never talks about it unless you ask just right. But I think he's not waiting for her. He's waiting for the silence. Because once you hear a voice say, "You took her," you start listening to every empty seat a little closer. You watch the mirrors even when no one's behind you, and you start to realize the road doesn't forget the ones who bled on it and never forgives the ones who didn't listen. You might be the next person it wants to ride with. Episode 3. Eastbound. You ever think about how the road doesn't care what's chasing you? Doesn't ask why you're running or what sins ride on your back like old regrets. It doesn't judge, just stretches ahead. Quiet, endless, and dares you to keep going while the shadows close in. The man who called himself Isis Vapmam hadn't been born with that name. He stitched it together like a disguise, pieced from gravestones and forgotten mugshots. Said it felt right. Said it sounded like someone people wouldn't follow. Maybe he was right. He slipped out of prison one scorched July night. Bit by bit, he'd hidden wire inside the food they served him. Used it to cut through the fence. Didn't look back. Just walked, eastbound, past the Arkansas border where the swamps breathe and the fog doesn't lift. Mosquitoes swarmed like curses. His jumpsuit was gone by dawn, traded for damp laundry he stole from a clothesline while the owners slept through their dreams. He waited by the roadside, thumb out, at a stretch of cracked pavement that looked like brittle bones. He didn't expect a car to stop, but one did. Not rusted, not broken. A black sedan, glossy, tinted windows. The kind of car that doesn't drive, it glides. The window slid down, slow, and the man inside studied him with a smile stretched a little too far. "You lost?" the man asked. "Headed east," Isis replied. The man gave a short nod. "Hop in." Now, getting in a stranger's car, especially one with that kind of grin, should have felt wrong. But Isis climbed in without hesitation. The man said his name was Richard Primer, said he was on his way to a family cabin past the state line. Said the long drive felt shorter with company. Isis thought about robbing him the moment the door shut. He had a blade tucked in his sock. His fingers itched with the memory of how easy it used to be. But Richard drove like a man who'd done this too many times. Didn't ask questions. Didn't mention the heat. Didn't even flinch when they passed a billboard with a familiar-looking face. He just drummed his fingers on the wheel in a rhythm that didn't match any song Isis knew. The towns blurred past, like places that forgot how to live. Dark gas stations, diners with chairs flipped like the end of a Last Supper. Even the cattle looked like ghosts pretending to graze. About an hour in, Richard spoke. "You ever kill anyone?" Isis blinked, let out a breath of a laugh. "What kind of question is that?" Richard didn't smile. "I have," he said. Isis didn't ask how, but the air in the car thinned, like they were driving through something that sucked the oxygen out. He shifted his foot slightly, feeling the handle of the blade in his sock. Richard noticed. "You planning something, Isis?" His body tensed. He hadn't told him his name. Not his real one. Not the fake one. Nothing. "Relax," Richard said. "I'm just like you, running from things that don't sleep." "You a fugitive too?" Isis asked. Richard grinned, just enough to show his teeth. "No, I'm worse." Now predators, they don't always lunge, they watch, they wait, circle their prey. And mile after mile, Isis started to feel less like the wolf and more like what the wolf eats. They pulled up to a gas station that looked like a ghost of itself. No sign, no prices, windows blacked out, pumps long gone. Richard said he needed to stretch his legs, told Isis to stay put. The moment the door shut, the radio flared to life. Not music, whispers. A woman murmuring something that sounded like breath through dirt. Then a child's giggle, then the rattle of chains dragging across wood, then silence. Isis turned the dial. Click, back to whispers. Click again, static, click, then nothing. When Richard returned, he held a plain brown bag. No logo, no receipt. "Snacks," he said. He handed over a candy bar. Isis bit in and spat it out. It tasted like copper and soil. They drove on. And that's when Richard started talking. Not small talk, not stories. Confessions. Said he used to be a doctor. Said he gave up his license. "Hard to heal people," he muttered, "when they pray to die instead." Isis stared straight ahead. "You ever hear a man pray for death?" Richard asked. "You ever hear that prayer turn into something else?" Isis looked at the door handle. You ever realize you're not healing anymore, just helping them rot slower? Isis asked how much longer the ride was. Richard smiled, but didn't answer. And then the road changed. No signs, no shoulders, just trees pressing in, branches scraping across the windshield like they were trying to reach inside. The car stopped, middle of nowhere. Nothing but the hum of the engine and the sound of breath. Richard turned to him. "You're not running from prison," he said. "You're running from the thing inside you, the one that remembers." Isis reached for the knife. Richard didn't even blink. "You think you're the threat," he whispered. "But I see it. You're afraid, not of being caught, of being still, of being seen, of the silence." He leaned closer. "You should be." Isis moved fast, pulled the blade, slashed, but there was nothing to cut. No scream, no blood, just emptiness. The seat was vacant. The wheel turned itself, the car still running. From the back seat, a whisper. "You should have stayed locked away." Isis spun around. Nothing. Just a candy wrapper on the floor. It crinkled in the still air like it was breathing. He bolted, ran barefoot into the woods, howling, branches ripping at his skin like they knew his name. They found him 3 days later in a ditch. Eyes wide, whispering Richard over and over like a name that summoned things. He didn't fight the arrest, didn't speak for 2 weeks. And when he finally did, he said only, "He was already dead when I got in." I tried to find Richard Primer. No records, no cabin, no license, no car. But I did find an old clipping, 1997 watch, just outside Little Rock. A hospice doctor accused of mercy killings, name redacted. Charges dropped after he died in a car crash. Heading eastbound. Photos grainy. But the smile doesn't reach his eyes. So maybe Isis thought he was the monster. Maybe he thought he was the one to fear. But the road doesn't care which one of you is worse. It just puts you in the same car and lets the truth pull the skin back. And if you've made it this far, check your rear view. Not for headlights, for him. Because next time, you might not be the one with the knife.
Episode 4. Empty passenger seat. Some people grieve by letting go, others by holding on. And then there are the ones who build rituals out of absence, who keep a bedroom untouched, a voicemail unplayed, a porch light burning like a beacon no one ever answers. Winifred Miles did something else. She started picking people up. Her daughter Chantel had been missing 6 years by then, 19 years old. Disappeared on her way home for Thanksgiving break. Last seen getting into a stranger's car outside a college town in Oregon. Tall man. Blue SUV. Out-of-state plates. He even opened the door for her. Witnesses said she was laughing, and then she was gone. No camera footage. No license plate. No fingerprints. No body. Winifred did everything. Flyers, interviews, camped out at the precinct like grief gave her squatter's rights. She learned to say, "My daughter is missing," like it was just another sentence. No different than asking for paper or plastic. But time kept moving, and eventually the world left her behind. She didn't stop. Instead, she started driving the same route Chantel took that last day. Every week. Same time. Same turnpikes. She memorized the trees, the tilt of certain mailboxes, the spots where the wind pulled sideways. And after a while, when she saw someone walking along the road, she started pulling over. Didn't matter who. Young women. Middle-aged men. Teens with backpacks and shadows under their eyes. Winifred would slow down, lean across the seat and say, "Need need a ride? She didn't lie about who she was, but she didn't volunteer much either. And the way she spoke, like her voice was dragging a chain behind it. At first, it seemed like she just needed someone to listen. She'd talk about Chantel, how she loved the cello, how she once dyed her hair orange and said she looked like fire. She kept a sun-faded photo of her daughter on the dashboard, the frame cracked from heat. Sometimes she'd pass it to her passengers, watch their eyes when they held it. Some got quiet, some cried, some asked to be let out early, but every time, she watched them in the rear view. She said she was looking for something, a pause, a flicker, a slip. She said if she ever picked up the one who took Chantel, she'd know. She'd feel it in her bones. And what would she do? That's the part she never said out loud. I came across Winifred's story by accident. A man sent me a message, said he was hitchhiking on Highway 22 when a woman picked him up. Said she told him the saddest story he'd ever heard. Said she stared at him a little too long, like she was trying to peel him open. Said she touched the photo on the dash like it was made of thin glass and breath. He said the ride only lasted 20 minutes, but she haunted him for weeks. I found her through a Facebook page for the missing. She didn't hide. She even posted the exact route she drove, just in case anyone had something to share. When I called her, she answered on the second ring. She said, I figured someone would reach out eventually. Then she told me everything. Winifred kept a logbook. Every passenger, date, time, what they talked about, where they got in, where they got out. And one other thing, something she called the feeling. Next to every name there was a word. Fine, lost, empty, wrong. And once, just once, close. I asked what close meant. She went quiet. Then he wore cologne. Same smell as the shirt they found in the ravine. I asked if she called it in. She laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was familiar. To who? She said. She told me the police stopped answering after year 2. Said they'd stuffed her into that same old folder. Grieving mother, seeing ghosts. She said she stopped needing them. Winifred wasn't looking for closure anymore. She was looking for something sharper. Not justice, not peace, truth, or pain, whichever came first. And then something happened. Last spring, a man was found limping along the side of that same highway. Broken jaw, 2 missing teeth, sprained wrist. Said a woman picked him up in a silver sedan. Said she was polite, friendly, talked about her daughter. Said it all felt normal until she started asking questions. Where he was headed, why he had no bag, if he believed people vanish or if they're taken. He said the air in the car turned thick, like he was sinking. He asked her to pull over. She didn't. He said he reached for the door, and that's when she struck him. Something metal from between the seats. Cold, precise. She didn't yell, didn't scream. Just looked him in the eye and said, "Did she scream?" He jumped out while the car was still moving. Didn't get the make. Didn't catch the plate. Just remembered the dashboard photo. Orange hair, wide smile. Police filed a report, but barely investigated. I asked Winifred about it. She didn't admit anything. She didn't deny it either. Just said, some people deserve to be afraid. She wasn't angry when she said it. Wasn't proud. Just steady, like it wasn't revenge. just the only thing that made sense anymore. She's still driving that route, still pulling over when she sees someone walking, still hoping one of them has the wrong kind of silence in their story. She told me once that she dreams about Chantel riding shotgun, not as she was, but older, as if time kept going for her somewhere else. Said sometimes she hears her laugh when the tires hit a pothole just right. Said once, when the radio went dead, she heard the word mama whispered through the static. She pulled over and cried so hard her body shook. Then she got back in the car and kept driving. You might think she's unstable or unwell. Maybe she is. But grief doesn't always cry on the bathroom floor. Sometimes it drives in circles, waiting for the world to hand back what it took. Sometimes it picks you up on the side of the highway with a sad smile and a picture frame on the dash. I asked her if she ever thought about stopping. She said no. Said the road's the only place she feels like she's not stuck in time. Because out there, the ghosts aren't gone. They're riding with her. So if you ever get offered a ride by someone too quiet, too kind, too full of aching eyes and unanswered questions, think before you open that door. Ask yourself, is she giving you a ride or giving you a reckoning? Because next time, you might not make it out of the passenger seat. Let me know.
Episode 5. My grandmother used to say, no good deed goes unpunished. But I think the more dangerous thing, the thing nobody warns you about, is when the good deed mutates. When it gets twisted, reinterpreted, stretched until it doesn't look good anymore. Just haunting. Reverend Steve Meaner learned that the hard way. Small town pastor, thin man, wore his shirts tucked in and his guilt tucked deeper. He prayed over everything, even drive-through fries, the kind of man who still waved at passing cars and kept extra Bibles in his trunk, just in case someone needed saving. But he hadn't always been a reverend. He used to be a carpenter, built things with his hands before he started building sermons. Maybe that's why he believed everyone could be fixed, people especially. That belief nearly broke him. It was a Sunday in early spring, somewhere just outside Fannin County, Texas. One of those warm days that smells like wet earth and second chances. Reverend Meaner had just finished guest preaching at a church a few towns over. The service had gone well. He'd shaken hands, prayed for a woman's swollen knee, said kind words to a boy with a stutter. The drive home was peaceful, windows down, gospel humming low from the dash. Then he saw the man on the shoulder. Mid-30s, dusty beard, threadbare jacket, one arm limp at his side, the other holding a sign made of torn cardboard with just one word on it, anywhere. The Reverend felt that familiar tug deep in his chest, the one he called the Spirit. He slowed, pulled over. The man approached slow, like someone who'd learned not to expect kindness. "You need a ride?" the Reverend asked. The man nodded once. "Where are you headed?" The man looked out at the trees. "Don't matter." The Reverend smiled. "Well, I'm headed north. You're welcome to ride as far as I go." The man climbed in. He didn't stink, not like folks sometimes do after walking all day. Just smelled like motel soap and rain-soaked cotton. His eyes never quite settled, kept flicking toward road signs, tree lines, rear-view mirrors. "Name's Mason," he said. "No last name, no handshake." The Reverend nodded. "I'm Steve," and they drove. For a while, there was only the sound of the tires and the music, soft and low. The Reverend didn't press. Mason didn't speak. Then, maybe 20 miles in, Mason asked, "You ever pick up the wrong person?" The Reverend glanced over, still smiling. "I don't believe in wrong people, just people in pain." Mason nodded slowly. "I got pain." "I figured," the Reverend said. "That's why I stopped." Mason turned toward him, voice quiet. "You ever kill someone, Reverend?" Now, Steve Maynor had been asked strange things before. Pastors always are. People confess all sorts of things when they think you're safe. But this, something about how Mason said it, calm, matter of fact, made the Reverend tighten his grip on the wheel. "I have," he said. "In war, a long time ago. Not since I took the collar." Mason nodded. "I killed someone yesterday." The Reverend blinked. "Is that a joke?" Mason didn't smile. "No joke." Silence swallowed the car. Even the music felt quieter. The Reverend kept his eyes ahead, jaw tight. "What happened?" "She hurt someone," Mason said. "So I hurt her back." "Who was she?" "No one to you." "Do you want me to take you to the police?" Mason shook his head. "No. You said you'd take me where you were going." Most people would have slammed on the brakes right then, called the sheriff, gotten out and prayed from a safe distance. But Reverend Maynor believed in the lost sheep, the mustard seed, the road to Damascus, believed this might be a test, one God gives quietly in the space between instinct and fear. So he kept driving. Mason sat still, didn't ask for water, didn't ask for music, just watched the trees go by. Then they hit a roadblock. Squad cars, yellow tape, blue uniforms like scattered confetti across the highway. A deputy stepped up to the window, squinting at the Reverend, then at Mason. "Had some trouble up the road," he said. "You see anything unusual? Anyone walking alone?" The Reverend swallowed hard. "No, sir." "Picked him up about 20 miles back. Didn't see much else." The deputy leaned down. "You two related?" "No, sir. Just giving him a lift." The deputy looked at Mason. Mason smiled. A long pause. Then the deputy stepped back and waved them through. And just like that, they were alone again. The Reverend's throat felt like sandpaper. "You weren't lying," he said. "Were you?" Mason didn't answer, just pointed at the next turnoff. "Take that right." It was a back road, cracked pavement swallowed by pine. Trees leaned in like they were listening. The Reverend hesitated, but turned. The sun was low now, spilling red across the windshield. Mason said, "This is where she died." The Reverend eased the car to a stop, heart pounding. Mason leaned back, staring up at the canopy. "She was my sister," he said. "She used to hitchhike too. Who had this idea people were better than they seemed. Then one day, someone picked her up on this road and left her in a ditch." He paused. "She didn't die right away. Crawled nearly 50 yards. Tore her fingers to the bone trying to get back up the bank." The Reverend felt sick. "I looked for the man who did it. For years." Mason turned to him. "Thought I found him yesterday." Silence. "Wasn't him." The Reverend's jaw went slack. "Then why?" "Because someone needed to pay." Mason looked him in the eye. "You think I'm evil?" "I think you're wounded." "You think I'll kill again?" The Reverend didn't answer. Mason nodded slowly, almost grateful. "You're not the man who did it. I knew that before I got in. But you were kind, and I needed someone to hear it, to carry it with me." Then he opened the door, stepped into the trees, and vanished. The Reverend waited. 10 minutes, then 20, then turned the car around. He never saw Mason again. But the next day, the news came. A man found dead in a trailer off a service road near the county line. No forced entry. Single stab wound to the heart. Room untouched. But one strange detail. A Bible left open on the chest. Page marked, Luke 10:25-37. The parable of the Good Samaritan. I asked Reverend Meaner if he thought Mason was a murderer or just a brother still crawling through grief. He said he didn't know, said he still prays for him. But sometimes, when he's driving home after dark, he slows when he sees someone on the shoulder. Not to offer a ride, just to make sure it's not Mason. Still walking, still grieving, still looking for someone willing to sit with the weight of what he's done. Because the next time you open your door, you might not be the Good Samaritan. You might be the confession. And the road doesn't care which. Episode 6, State Line. People say trust your gut, but they never tell you what to do when your gut doesn't scream. When it just hums. Low and slow, like an engine idling in the dark. Not loud enough to act on, not sharp enough to name. Just a whisper, buried under hope and politeness. Levi Duberton was 19, sophomore at Western Kentucky, majoring in psychology, minoring in being broke. Thanksgiving was coming up fast, and he wanted to surprise his parents back home in Roanoke. But the bus was full. Plane tickets were a joke. His bank account had more dust than dollars. So he did what people used to be warned about before the internet made us cocky. He hitched a ride. Technically, it wasn't classic hitchhiking. Levi posted on a rideshare forum for students. Said he was headed east, would split gas, respectful passenger, easygoing, just trying to get home for the holidays. Polite language, soft edges, nothing sketchy. 3 days later, someone replied. Guy said his name was Denny. Said he drove long-haul gigs, had a van. Was passing through Levi's college town around 6 p.m. the night before Thanksgiving. Said he could take him all the way to Roanoke. Levi hesitated, checked the profile. Sparse but clean. No red flags. Even had a smiley face in the bio. Just a colon and parentheses like it meant something. It was free. Levi said yes. They met in a grocery store parking lot as the sun dipped behind a strip mall. Levi had one backpack, a Tupperware of his roommate's cornbread, and a phone charger he'd stuffed in his sock in case of thieves. Denny was already there. The van was big. Not cargo truck big, but unsettling in its own way. A Dodge, maybe. Faded paint, no windows in the back, just two up front and one spider-webbed windshield that looked like it had been punched or struck by something heavier than a rock. Denny leaned out. Levi? He was older than expected. Not college age. Not even close. Maybe late 40s, early 50s. Greasy hairline. Sweat-soaked t-shirt. He smelled like gas station cologne and stale soda. Voiced like a late-night radio host whose audience had long since vanished. Yep, Levi said, trying to swallow the hesitation before it hit his face. Denny grinned and patted the side of the van. Hop in, brother. Long road ahead. Levi reached for the passenger door, but Denny stopped him. Ah, front's packed, tools and junk. You don't mind sliding in the back, do you? Right there. That was the first moment Levi should have said no. Should have faked a call. Should have run. But his gut didn't yell. It just murmured. And he told himself, he's just a weird guy doing a favor. He opened the sliding door, climbed in. It was darker than it should have been. No seats, just a mattress bolted to the floor, a plastic jug of water, some ratty blankets, a dented cooler with no labels, and an air freshener swinging from the ceiling like a noose. Then the door slid shut. Heavy. Final. Click. No inside handle. That was the second red flag. But Levi told himself again, maybe he's just weird. Maybe it's just a story I'll tell later. The van started, pulled out, and they drove. He tried small talk, asked about work, about music, about where Denny was from. No answer. Denny didn't talk, didn't laugh, didn't even grunt, just drove. And Levi noticed something else. No rear view mirror, no windows in the back, not even up front on the sides. Just darkened glass and the cracked windshield, like the van had been designed to forget the outside world existed. He reached for his phone. No signal. Tried texting. Nothing sent. He banged lightly on the thin wall separating the back from the driver's cab. No response. Just the hum of tires eating miles. He started watching the floor, counting curves in the road, trying to mark time by feel. But they didn't stop. Not for food. Not for gas. Not for bathrooms. At some point, Levi's body gave out. He slept, not peacefully, not fully, just disconnected, like his brain gave up trying to process anything. When he woke, the jug of water had been moved, closer to his hand, and the Tupperware was gone. He never heard the van stop, never felt it slow, but something had been opened. Something had been taken. He looked at the cooler. He'd avoided it before, but now he hopped it open. Inside were shoes, 6 pairs, different styles, different sizes. None of them Denny's, none of them Levi's. Some small, one pink, one missing laces. Levi screamed, kicked the walls, pounded the door until his hands stung, yelled until his voice cracked. No one answered. Eventually the van slowed, pulled over. He heard boots crunch on gravel, then silence. Then the door slid open. Denny stood there, silhouetted by gray sky and bare trees. Wind moved through the clearing like it had somewhere else to be. "We're here," Denny said. Levi backed away. "Where is here?" Denny didn't answer, just smiled. Behind him, pine trees. No road signs, no lights, no other cars. Just dirt and a trash bag half buried near a stump. "Go stretch your legs." Levi shook his head. Denny leaned in and grabbed the cooler. "You don't gotta stay long." That's when Levi saw the knife. Duct-taped handle, worn blade, wedged into the waistband of Denny's jeans like it belonged there. He didn't think. He ran. Not away, but through. Pushed past Denny with all the strength fear could conjure. Scrambled into the front. The van was still running. Keys in the ignition. He floored it. Didn't look back. Didn't stop. Didn't know where he was going. Just away. He drove until the gaslight came on. Until the sun rose in a sky that looked too clean to be real. Then he saw a sign, "Welcome to West Virginia." He'd crossed at least 3 state lines. He didn't remember roads, didn't remember exits, didn't know what direction he'd come from. Eventually, he found a gas station, stumbled in, covered in sweat, grime, fear, told the cashier everything. The cooler, the windowless ride, the silence, the knife, the shoes. The man called the cops. 2 officers showed up, listened with tilted heads and skeptical frowns, then asked the one question that stuck in Levi's chest like ice. "Why didn't you call sooner?" He tried to explain. No signal, no inside handle, no idea where he was. But they weren't buying it. No injuries, no photos, no van in the parking lot, and no record of any Denny matching his description. They said they'd take a report. said they'd look into it, but Levi saw it in their faces. They didn't believe him. And when he asked if they'd searched the woods near the clearing, they just nodded vaguely. He went home, didn't tell his parents the full story, just said the ride was weird. Now, every Thanksgiving, he walks to the edge of his parents' Westnard backyard where the trees thicken and the light dims. And he listens, not for birds, not for wind, but for tires, for gravel, for the low hum of an engine that sounds too steady to be casual. Because Levi's convinced Denny's still out there, still driving, still picking up new names, still filling that cooler. And somewhere on his steering wheel, there's a list, carved in shallow scratches. Levi's name is near the top, but not crossed out. Not yet. And next time, you might not just be the passenger. You might be the next size in the cooler. Episode 7. Nobody stops here. There's a stretch of Route 77 that runs straight through the desert like a cracked bone. No towns, no signals, no shoulder worth stopping on. Just sand and silence. Heat you can feel in your teeth. And if you ask the locals around Antlers Cove, they'll tell you one thing. Same way every time. With eyes wide and lips tight like they're trying to hold something inside. Nobody stops here. Not anymore. Not since the disappearances. Not since the legend became law. They say it started back in the 50s, back when the desert still had secrets, and the motels were still full of travelers trying to outrun the noise of their lives. Route 77 had a reputation even then. Lonely, long, a little too quiet, a little too easy to vanish into. But it wasn't cursed. Not yet. Then a woman disappeared. A trucker swore he picked her up just past mile marker 12. Young, pretty, wore white gloves even in the heat. Said she smiled but never spoke. Said she stared straight ahead the whole time, like she was listening to something he couldn't hear. He claimed she didn't blink once. Then, before he hit the next rest stop, she was just gone. Door still locked, passenger seat empty, not a sound. People laughed, said he was drunk, said he fell asleep at the wheel and dreamed it all up. Then he disappeared too. Truck found on the side of the road, engine still ticking. Cab empty, his thermos still full, logbook wide open. After that, it started happening more often. Drivers would pull over to help someone walking the shoulder, and by morning, neither of them could be found. Some say it was always the same. Someone breaks down or gets curious. They pull off to check the engine, or maybe stretch their legs. They see a figure walking along the shoulder, thumb out, sometimes in a hoodie, sometimes in a sundress. Once, someone said the figure had no face at all, just long hair blowing in the wind and a shadow where the features should have been. Never the same face, they say, but the same feeling. Too calm for the heat, too clean for the dust, and if you stop, you're gone by sunrise. No tire marks, no struggle, no ping from your phone, even if it was fully charged. Just gone. At first, people blamed a serial killer, then a cult, then something older, something the desert woke up when the road cut through its belly. The town sheriff tried to shut the highway down, claimed it was unsafe, claimed it was crumbling. Didn't work. Too many federal contracts, too many trucks crossing state lines, too many ghosts of what this road used to mean to the region. Freedom, escape, movement. So instead, they put up a sign. Not official, not from the state, just a rusted piece of metal hammered into the ground with 5 words burned deep into its surface. Nobody stops here after dark. And for a while that worked. Until the teenagers came. You know the kind. Daring each other to take the drive at midnight, leaving the car idling, sitting with the windows rolled down and the lights off, laughing until they hear something crunch in the gravel behind them, until they see something in the rear view, until the laughter dries up in their throats like old blood. One boy made it back, wouldn't talk for nearly a year. When he finally did, he drew a picture, not of a person, not of a ghost, just a hand, long, stretched unnaturally thin, with a thumb pointing down. Not up, down. I went to Antlers Cove last fall. I had to. Some stories follow you like dust in your boots. You either shake them off or let them lead you somewhere cold. The town had one diner, one gas station, and a mechanic who wouldn't fix tires after 6 p.m., a place frozen in time. Like it stopped growing the moment the road turned sour. I asked around. Most folks didn't want to talk. The ones who did whispered. A waitress named Petra opened up after her shift. She said her brother vanished in 2003, picked up a hitchhiker at dusk on his way back from Tucson, called her just once from the road, said, "She's got no shoes." Then the line went dead. They found his truck the next morning, parked on the shoulder just past mile marker 12, engine humming, radio on, driver's door wide open, keys still in the ignition. No blood, no signs of struggle, just barefoot prints in the sand leading away from the truck. Petra said her brother's name was Miguel. He was 28, a mechanic like their father, big heart, the kind of guy who couldn't ignore a person in need, even if his gut told him to keep driving. That night, he just dropped off a part in Tucson, was supposed to be home by 9. By 10, she was calling his phone. By midnight, the sheriff was knocking. She said she rode with them to recover the truck. Inside, everything looked wrong, too quiet. The radio had bled into static. There were greasy fingerprints on the dash, too small to be Miguel's. And a woman's scarf was wrapped around the gear shift, light blue like a piece of the sky. There was something else. Salt. The floorboard on the passenger side was covered in it, thick, crusted, like someone had poured it there deliberately. And Miguel hated salt, wouldn't eat popcorn if it was buttered. They sent the scarf off for testing. No DNA, no trace fibers, not even a label. Like it hadn't been made anywhere on this planet. Petra told me she doesn't drive after dark anymore. Doesn't look at the shoulder if someone's walking it. Said if you see them and you know what they are, and you still stop, then it's your turn. But there was more. When the wind picks up around closing time, she sometimes finds those barefoot prints leading to the diner. Small, deep. Too deep for a body that size. Once, they circled the building and stopped right under the kitchen window, then vanished. She gave me something before I left, an old Polaroid, faded, warped. It showed her and Miguel standing by his truck, arms slung around each other, squinting into the sun. In the background, just off to the left, a shape, tall, blurry, no face, no feet. She didn't see it until a month after the photo was taken, after he was gone. Now she keeps it tucked in a Bible under the register. Said it helps her remember what to forget. I drove the stretch myself, midday, sun bleeding down like it wanted to peel the skin off your bones, the road glinting like a silver knife, miles and miles of nothing. My GPS kept buffering. Phone dropped every bar, and at mile marker 12, I saw it. A figure. Not walking, not moving, just standing, like it had been planted there. Could have been a man, could have been a woman, tall, still, back turned to me. No thumb out, no motion. just presence. I didn't stop, didn't slow, but I did glance in the mirror, and in that second, the figure turned. Didn't move, didn't chase, just watched. And for the next 60 miles, every time I blinked, I saw it again. In the corner of the windshield, in the mirror, in the shimmer of heat off the hood. Once, I swear it flickered in the glass of my sunglasses like a reflection that didn't belong to me. I didn't stop to eat, didn't stop to breathe, just drove until I saw lights again, until the road felt real, until Route 77 was in my rear view and the desert couldn't reach me anymore. I haven't been back. But sometimes when I'm driving at night and the stations go silent and the road stretches longer than it should, I glance at the shoulder and wonder, would I stop? Would you? Because not all hitchhikers want to ride. Some just want to be seen. Some are looking for a way back. And some, they're looking for someone to take their place. So next time you're alone on a desert road and the sun's slipping down behind the mountains, keep your doors locked. Keep your eyes forward. Because nobody stops here. Not twice. And the next ride might be waiting for you to pull over.
Episode 8. You were never in my car. Some monsters don't hide in shadows. They ride in the front seat. They ask if you want the aux cord. Offer you mints. Smile too easy, laugh too loud. And when the ride ends, they lean over just a little too close and say, leave a good review. But Monet didn't ask for stars. She just wanted silence. She was a rideshare driver. Lyft, Uber, a couple of off-brand apps with names nobody could pronounce. She picked up shifts on the ones that didn't do background checks. Started part-time, working nights. Said she liked the quiet, said people told you more when the dark wrapped around them. But Monet wasn't just a driver. She was also a passenger. On nights when business was slow, she'd pull over and change, literally. Out of her pink and purple driver jacket, off with the decal that lit up Monet, 4.9 stars, and on with the illusion. She'd swap the sign on her dash for an old thumb. Worn canvas backpack, braids loose around her shoulders, a smudge of dirt on her cheek, and shoes that looked like they'd walked too far. She'd stand on the shoulder like a question with no answer, just far enough from the nearest gas station to seem like she needed saving, and someone always stopped. Men, women, couples. Didn't matter. She'd smile with her eyes first, get in with a thanks, say her name was Zariah or Tony, or sometimes just M. She didn't always kill. Sometimes she just watched, took things, glove compartments like confessionals, IDs, receipts, little reminders that people carry their secrets too close to the surface. But when she did kill, there was never a trace. No blood, no struggle, no cleanup, just absence. Police didn't connect the dots for years. The victims were in different states. Her names changed like radio stations. Her photos never matched. Her aliases were smoke. And every time the news ran a case, she'd drive past the posters with the windows down and the radio blasting like it was her own personal victory lap. Monet was good. Too good. Until the final ride. It was a Thursday. Storm coming in sideways. The sky was bruised, and the wind was threatening to peel the world back. She'd already done 3 pickups, 2 for money, 1 for curiosity. Then she saw him, just standing there. Outside a boarded-up hardware store, duffel bag at his feet, thumb raised like it was accusing the clouds. He didn't look scared, didn't look desperate, just still, soaked through. He looked young, maybe 20. Skin pale in a way that didn't look natural, like he'd just been pulled out of the ocean. She slowed, rolled the window down. "You need a ride?" He nodded. didn't speak, just opened the door and got in, smooth as a shadow. He didn't ask where she was going, didn't offer a destination, didn't make eye contact. She liked that. She liked the quiet ones best, the ones who wouldn't be missed until morning. They drove, past lights, out of range, into the dark. She asked his name. He didn't answer. She asked if he was headed towards something or away from it. Still nothing. But he kept that duffel bag in his lap the whole time like it had something inside that was breathing. She watched him from the corner of her eye, noticed his hands weren't shaking, but they weren't right either. Scarred knuckles. Symbols carved in ink along his palms, like reminders, like warnings, like he'd written something down that he wasn't supposed to remember. And she thought, maybe he was dangerous too. She liked that even more. They hit a stretch of road that shimmered like spilled oil and bad memory. She reached under the seat and wrapped her fingers around her quiet stick, a steel bar wrapped in soft leather, curved just enough to look like a tire iron if someone ever asked. She tapped it against the floorboard once. He didn't flinch. That was the third red flag. Then he finally spoke. You ever think about how many bodies the road could hold? She smiled, all the time. He turned slow, like a door creaking open. You think you're the only one who hunts the dark? She tightened her grip. I don't hunt, she said. I drive. He nodded. So do I. Then he unzipped the duffel bag. Not a gun, not a knife, a book. Old, leather, soaked. Stained with something dark and dry. He flipped to the center and held it open in his lap. She glanced down. There, on the page was a sketch. Her face. Exactly. Even the braid curling near her left ear, the mole under her chin. She didn't breathe. Beneath the drawing, in thick block letters, red as was dried rust, it said, You were never in my car. Her stomach dropped. Her throat went dry. Who are you? He smiled for the first time. I'm the one they send when the stories start to line up. She slammed the brakes. The car jerked. His body didn't. She grabbed the quiet stick, swung hard, but the seat was empty. Not like he ducked. Gone. Gone like he'd never been there at all. No sound, no warning, no weight, just absence. Just the open book still sitting on the passenger seat. She stared at it. The pages started flipping by themselves, like they were caught in a breeze that wasn't blowing. Each page had a face. Each face had a name, names she recognized, names she made disappear. Below each one, you were never in my car. Then the lights on her dash died, the engine cut, her phone went black in her lap. No GPS, no signal, no clock, just her own heartbeat, loud and wrong, and the sound of the back seat creaking. She didn't turn around. She couldn't. But the voice was behind her now. Not angry, not loud, just steady. You're not the driver anymore, Monet. Then nothing. Darkness so thick it felt like it had teeth. She woke up hours later, curled up in the back seat of her own car. Alone. Journal gone. Stick gone. Front seat soaked like it had been raining indoors. A note taped to the steering wheel. This ride's over. She never picked up another soul. Tried to turn herself in once, somewhere outside Missouri. Walked into a sheriff's office and spilled every detail. The officer laughed. Said there was no Monet on record. No rideshare log. No license. No photos. No fingerprints. Said her prints didn't match anyone. Said, ma'am, you were never in that car. She doesn't talk anymore. Not out loud. Just drives. Circles the same 10-mile radius around that one boarded-up store like she's stuck in a loop. She stops at every light. Watches every stranger. Waiting for him. Hoping the next person who gets in is the one who finishes what he started. Because somewhere deep inside, she knows. She didn't make all those people disappear. Not really. Something else did. Something that used her, borrowed her, drove her like a car with no brakes until the last mile. And when it was done, it left her hollow, like a glove turned inside out. And now she's just waiting for someone to put it back on. I'm queenieEanaj, and that was Thumbprint. 8 rides, 8 roads, one long stretch of silence you can't undo. If you've ever felt like someone got in your car and never left, like a shadow still lingers in your back seat, or a voice whispers whenever you pass a place that feels too familiar, tell me. Tag me. Share this with 5 people who always think they're in control of the wheel. And if you made it this far, roll your windows up tonight, because sometimes the person knocking ain't alive. And if you let them in, you were never in that car. Every ride starts with a question. Do I trust this person? But here's the harder one. Do you even trust yourself? Because it's easy to say what you'd never do. But out there, when the road stretches too long, when the map starts folding in on itself, when the rules go soft and the night whispers your name, who are you really? Think about that. And if you're still here, drop your favorite color in the comments. Just one. A small way of saying, I'm real. I'm still here. This is me. If this story stayed with you, if it made you lock your doors, turn your mirrors, or flinch at a shadow riding shotgun, share it. Let someone else know. Thumbprint leaves a mark. I'm queenieEanaj. Thanks for riding with me. Until next time, keep your doors locked or wide open.